If you have an actual question for any of our actual speakers of today's panels, most of whom are still here, then come on down to the microphone and ask a question in the form of a question. Tony, I know you can do it.
For David Kopel. Dave, Sonia Sotomayor during the confirmation hearing said that the Second Amendment was settled law, and then she voted against Heller. Is there any possibility that she could be impeached?
You know, you can impeach him. You can impeach people for whatever you want, but there's never been a serious attempt. There's been two attempts to impeach Supreme Court justices. In the 1960s, there was this impeach Earl Warren bumper sticker, or actually William Douglas, who was sort of more aggressive in his judicial role. You got a significant number of Republican congresspersons who said they were in favor of impeaching Douglas, but that never got anywhere. And then back in the first administration of Thomas Jefferson, there was an effort to impeach Samuel Chase, the Supreme Court justice, for his intemperate and hyper-political remarks he'd made when he was doing some of the trials under the Sedition Act. But that also did not succeed, although it ultimately scared the Supreme Court enough that they became less aggressively Federalist political. But no, there's no chance for that. And what Sotomayor was clever in that when she said it's settled law, people understood that in the sense of saying, oh yeah, it's fine. No problem. This is our foundation going forward. What she was meaning in her own head was it is settled law in the sense of, yeah, it's a Supreme Court precedent and everybody understands what it means. This isn't one of those things where, you have a split where you got three justices saying one thing and two saying another and one saying another. And well, what's the opinion of the court? We don't really know. Those cases happen. Her point was, oh, this is not like that. This is settled law in that it has a clear meaning core meaning that everybody understands. Obviously, she was saying that in a way deliberately hoping that people would misconstrue it as thinking that she would not vote to overturn Heller.
Thank you, David. Next up.
Yeah. This question is for Dr. Wheeler. I was just wondering if you had seen, a few years back, David Codrea of National Gun Rights Examiner came up with a questionnaire to give doctors. It was more like a liability form. Say if you tell me to get rid of my guns and I suffer because of it, then you take responsibility for it. And it's kind of an in-your-face thing, but I'm just wondering what you thought of it if you've seen it.
It's too bad Dave couldn't be with us here. He's one of the great motivators in the gun rights battle recently, especially with Fast and Furious. I remember that form, and I remember also another person whose name escapes me, who is a risk management consultant. This is some years ago, who wrote a similar form. I think it's a great concept. In theory, probably more than in practice. There's a lot of stuff going on when you're going to see the doctor. You usually want to get your back fixed or, get your blood pressure under control or something of that nature. So you probably don't have time for a confrontation like that. That would just blow everything out of the water, But it's a great thought. It's a great thought. There are probably other ways to make your doctor aware of this. And the most common one is to wait for the question that I talked about here at the podium a few minutes ago from your doctor, which may come on a questionnaire before you even go in the exam room. Do you have guns in your home? Do you have firearms in your home? I've seen this on a number of questionnaires, including the medical group that I worked with for a lot of years. That's your key. That's your opening right there. And all you need to do is bring that to your doctor's attention.
Thanks, Tim.
Zimmerman? Malia. Okay.
Nikki, go ahead.
Okay. Malia, You are working in obviously one of the more hostile environments for firearms rights. I know we've seen you many years over here. So, how much has your paper or your thing actually grown in Hawaii since, the last 5 years? I mean, how much impact is alternative media making for firearms rights, especially in hostile areas?
Well, we've seen our two daily newspapers combine into one, and basically shutting one down. We've seen our 4 TV stations combine into 3. And so when it comes time for access to press conferences, there's just me, 3 reporters from a TV station, 1 reporter from a daily, and 1 other from another online paper that started about 2 years ago. So we actually can make a big difference now because we're the ones asking the questions. There's quite a few times I go to a press conference and no one else asks any questions because we have a real timid media in a lot of cases. So it's a good opportunity because, we've able in 10 years to expand to TV. We do documentaries. We do investigative reports. We partner with some of the stations, and other media, and also do radio reports every morning. So we've been able to expand our little internet newspaper that everybody said no one's going to read to this pretty good size multimedia entity where we reach out to a variety of different audiences through different media, all electronic.
Thanks, Malia. Yes, sir.
I apologize that my question is really kind of inspired from yesterday, but I hope there's someone here who can answer to it today. They were talking yesterday about how the elected sheriffs by the people were more friendly to the Second Amendment, but the police chief who was appointed by the council that was also elected by the people tends to be hostile to the Second Amendment. Why is there that disparity when the police chief is appointed by the council members who are elected?
Well, Dad, if you want to take it, but one of the reasons is because you're putting another layer between them. But
yeah, I think that's the key answer. The sheriff is elected directly, has to campaign, has to meet the people. The police commissioner, police chief, is appointed through layers, usually the mayor's pick, and often with the advice and consent of the common council, all of who have their own political agendas. So there tend to be a separation there. Okay?
So the council and the mayor would be the proper place to apply the pressure?
Yes,
to
always.
That person or their opinion?
Well, the main thing is to hit those people and show that their appointment of a police chief is a political liability to them.
One other thing real quick is that in a lot of jurisdictions we make the mistake of not making Second Amendment a major issue in a sheriff's race. People make whatever assumptions about the sheriff. We need to make sure that every sheriff is vetted on the Second Amendment before he's elected. That's really important.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, we got 3 more. Yes, sir.
Right. About 1986, they passed the Firearm Owners Protection Act, and one of the provisions in the bill was that it was supposed to provide protection for firearm owners who are traveling across state lines. But I read over the past couple of years a number of jurisdictions in New York State and New Jersey have ignored those provisions, and they have arrested and prosecuted firearms owners on some relatively minor stuff just for mere possession. So are there any steps to try and strengthen this law?
We're always working on it. Unfortunately, FOPA was watered down pretty substantially by the time it was passed in '86. But the loophole in FOPA that's being exploited by New York and some other jurisdictions is that you must be traveling from a jurisdiction where it's legal for you to have it to a jurisdiction where it's legal for you to have it. And what they're doing is catching you that you were going to Massachusetts, but you weren't going to a shooting competition in Massachusetts. Therefore, it's not legal for you to have it in Massachusetts. So you're arrested in New York because you had it previously in Massachusetts. It's a little snaky thing. And we're trying to address it, but at this moment, there is nothing legislatively that I'm aware of that clearly bolsters it. I think it's definitely time for a FOPA 2 to come out and that we need to be moving forward on that to clarify that and end this sort of nonsense.
Jeff, it's been identified as valid. There's also other problems with it. It's actually, there's a section in my textbook on that, on the FOPA problems, and there have been some bad court decisions in New York and New Jersey on this. I believe the NRA, well, I know they're aware of it, and I think there is model legislation to fix that. Obviously, nothing on the gun issue, one way or the other, is moving in the U.S. Senate these days. But it is a identified problem that people know about and want to fix. And FOPA 2 would be great, but also something just more focused and maybe a better chance of passing sometime is something specifically addressing the travel issue. And obviously, interstate carry reciprocity partially fixes that problem.
Eric, you have the last word here.
And with regard to that question, I'd also like for trucker guns to address the issue of FOPA, because there are a lot of truck drivers who are carrying a lot of cargo, as I said earlier in my comments, and FOPA is a big issue in states where the right to keep and bear arms is pretty much almost nullified in different states like California, New Jersey, New York, those places where you have to lock up your firearm, including in Illinois. And some of the cases although I'm not a lawyer, I'm aware that there are some cases in different federal courts that are addressing the concealed carry statutes in those states. And but as far as for the traveling public and truckers, trucker guns would like to address that issue in the future with regard to people traveling in pretty much any capacity, hopefully.
Okay, we'll have time for one more question, and then if you have other questions, try and catch up with the speakers after we're all done. Yes, sir.
My question is for Mr. Kopel. Does the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution have any application when it comes to reciprocity?
No.
For concealed weapons permits?
The answer, the full faith and credit, means that the decision, say a court decision or quasi-judicial, of one state has to be respected by another. So if, there was an auto accident here, fortunately I'm not driving today, but, and somebody sued me in Florida court for an accident I caused in Florida, then when that person came to collect in Colorado, and says we want, attach Kopel's bank account, the Colorado courts will not re-inquire into the facts of the case. They just say, Florida District Court, this is a valid judgment of the Florida District Court. The victim gets Kopel's money, period, end of that. A carry permit is a permit to carry within your state. It can't have validity anywhere else. The Colorado legislature has no authority to say under what conditions somebody can carry a gun in Kansas or Florida or anywhere else. So driver's licenses, for example, which my Colorado license I can drive with that here, that is purely a matter of voluntary reciprocity among the states.
Thanks, Dave.